Something is the matter with Mercury. In the event that we trust the most recent insider information, the James Webb Space Telescope has tracked down proof of a past with life structures on this unpretentious planet. Yet that's not all. Mercury might be totally not the same as what we figured. It could be concealing things that have been directly before our eyes from the beginning, and we simply haven't seen them. Investigating Mercury is thought of inordinately difficult and risky, both for a valid justification, which we presently finally know. Secret in the actual focal point of our Sun-based framework is a planet that barely anybody has had on their radar with regards to fabulous disclosures in our sunlight-based framework. In light of ongoing perceptions in which the James Webb Space Telescope was, that's what likewise elaborate researchers suspect Mercury has a mysterious that it has been ready to keep all around stowed away from us until presently. Mercury is a rough planet somewhat bigger than Pluto and fundamentally more modest than our Earth or Mars. This world was really viewed as excessively hot to hold on to life or any sort of vegetation. However, at that point, scientists found water stores on Mercury, and our picture of this world is gradually changing positively. Perhaps we need to totally reconsider our Sun-based framework. Mercury is definitely not an extremely hot world. You would believe that little Mercury would be the most blazing planet in the planetary group. Hypothetically, this secretive world ought to likewise be a genuine heater, however, that is false. Mercury is the planet that is obviously at the highest point of the rundown of planets nearest to the Sun. Its separation from the Sun is just 58 million kilometers contrasted with Earth's 150 million kilometers. By and by, the most blazing planet in the nearby planet group is Venus. And though Mercury's environment is likewise hot, the a lot more modest Mercury is calm contrasted with Venus because of its little sweep around the Sun. Mercury is the quickest planet with an unbelievable speed of 47 kilometers per second. The planet finishes a full transformation in only 88 days. This speed is likely because of the gravitational post of the Sun. Mercury has much more it. Mercury's surface to entrance properties is portrayed by a differed scene. Various cavities recount the narrative of an momentous past and geographical movement that might look like that of Earth. Huge bowls, for example, the Caloris Basin, which estimates more than 1,500 kilometers in width, are striking scenes on Mercury. Between the cavities are huge plains that are presumably framed by antiquated volcanic movement. A few districts give indications of contracting, demonstrating that the planet has cooled over the long run as the mantle contracted. Shocking scenes of steep bluffs and transcending cliffs have shaped. Researchers call these designs, which can be a few hundred km long and up to 3 kilometers high, lobate scarps. Other ordinary Mercury scenes are the hollows, little splendid discouragements that have presumably shaped through sublimation of components like sulfur and potassium. At its shafts, Mercury has pits that are forever in shadow and hence keep it adequately cold to store water ice. This disclosure looks like a minor act of God, as specialists long believed that Mercury was excessively warm to store water there forever. The way that there is water on the little planet shows us that we misjudged Mercury. Assuming we take a gander at the real temperatures on Mercury, it rapidly turns out to be certain that we are investigating a universe of limits. By and by, Mercury is in no way, shape, or form a hot damnation like Venus. Temperatures vary and top up to 427 degrees Celsius during the day, yet drop to around -173 degrees Celsius around evening time. Researchers attribute these limits to the reality that the planet has practically no air to store or convey heat. Venus, on the other hand, has quite possibly of the densest environments in the planetary group. A nursery impact is framed here inside a thick shell of carbon dioxide, which warms the planet to temperatures of up to 467 degrees Celsius. Mercury is what very unique, and the ice shows there might be areas on this planet that are calm concerning temperature. This brings up the astonishing issue of whether it is possible that life could exist in such minimal zones, in obscure cavities or underneath immense precipices and rough outcrops that offer insurance. The disclosure of an outsider world. Who could have felt that the Greeks had, as of now, prevailed with regards to finding this nearly minuscule world? In 265 BC, on the size of our planetary group, you have to envision Mercury as a pin-sized spot that is simply apparent to straightforward telescopes. When it passes before the Sun, it was the Greek stargazer Tis who was quick to record the planet's position overhead. Anyway, it was not known how to found Mercury. Over the hundreds of years, different civic establishments made perceptions and records of Mercury. However, it was frequently hard to study the planet precisely because of its closeness to the Sun. It was exclusively with the appearance of current telescopes in the 17th century that stargazers had the option to make more nitty-gritty investigations and better arrange Mercury for what it is, the nearest of the 8 significant planets in the framework to the Sun. In 1631, the French cosmologist Pierre Gassendi was the first to portray a travel of Mercury in front of the Sun, and he determined the planet's circle. In 1771, the German stargazer Johann Hermann Schroeder examined the pivot of the planet and made a noteworthy error that prompted a misinterpretation for quite a while. Schroeder imagined that Mercury had a bound turn to the Sun, like the Moon to the Earth. It was only after the center of the 20th century that it was demonstrated that this was false. Mercury turns incredibly leisurely on its own hub, yet races rapidly around the Sun, which drove to the mistaken picture of a bound circle. In 1859, something considerably stranger occurred. The French space expert Urbain Le Verrier seen that Mercury's circle showed inconsistencies that couldn't be made sense of by the gravity of the other known planets alone. To make sense of these deviations, Le Verrier hypothesized the presence of a previously obscure planet among Mercury and the Sun, which he called Vulcan. Space experts at the time looked for Vulcan for many years, and there were additionally a few upheld sightings of the planet. Anyway, the presence of this world was never demonstrated. In 1915, Albert Einstein settled the mystery of Mercury with his general hypothesis of relativity. His hypothesis made sense of that the gravity of enormous masses, such as the Sun, bends spacetime, consequently making sense of the irregularity in Mercury's circle. This probably put the possibility of Vulcan off the table for good, despite the fact that the planet kept on entrancing sci-fi essayists in the 20th century. The principal genuine pictures of Mercury. It is somewhat amazing to hear that we've had something like a careful guide of Mercury's surface since 1974. The pictures taken by the Mariner 10 space test are amazing. The first Mercury test uncovered the littlest subtleties on the external layer of Mercury in surprisingly sharp detail. NASA's test flew exceptionally near Mercury multiple times. This brought about the very first close-up pictures of Mercury. The initial time people considered pits and scenes, as well as the genuine nature of Mercury. Mariner 10 not just photographed Mercury exhaustively yet additionally furnished us with estimation information from the planet's environmental factors. This showed that Mercury doesn't have a genuine air, but only a meager exosphere of helium and hydrogen. The test was too ready to gauge a feeble attractive field, which was truly a shock. Until then, it had been expected that Mercury had no attractive field by any stretch of the imagination because of its little size. After the 1970s, Mercury became obvious by its non-appearance for a long time. NASA wouldn't send any longer tests to this planet, and this caused some hypothesis. The reasons generally given by NASA were that the tests to Mercury would be incredibly hard to assemble and explore due to the gravitational draw of the Sun, and the outrageous circumstances a Mercury test must be sturdily fabricated and have a strong impetus framework to forestall a test costing a great many dollars from being inadvertently gobbled up by the Sun. It was not until 2008 that NASA set out on the experience indeed. The Mercury surface, space environment, geochemistry, and ranging mission or messenger for short, effectively opened the following section in the investigation of this planet. And Messenger additionally shut down reports that NASA as of now not had any desire to fly to Mercury for something else altogether reason. Messenger effectively entered Mercury's circle in 2011, and by 2015, it had given new bits of knowledge into the planet's topographical history, counting energizing new proof of volcanism, pictures of broad magma plains, and proof of water ice in the polar holes. Messenger's estimation information stirred the interest of researchers. As the information displayed, there could be far more to Mercury than we previously associated. Specifically, the proof of the planet's turbulent past shows that Mercury was and is extremely dynamic topographically. This thusly may demonstrate that we are misconstruing Mercury's past. A few researchers accept that Mercury was once in a distinctive situation in the nearby planet group and was then pushed all the way in by Jupiter's gravity. Imagine a scenario where Mercury in this manner once remained in the tenable zone and perhaps held on to life. A portion of Mercury's scenes are for sure suggestive of a rough world like our own or even Mars. specialists suspect that a planet that grew so near the Sun from the beginning would look entirely different. It is in this manner conceivable that Mercury was once in the mild zone, all things considered. James Webb is now to reveal new insight into unequivocally these